Welcome to a brand new week of Evan and Tiki here on the Fan on this gorgeous June Monday in New York City. We got a lot to get to. Coming up in right around an hour from now at 3 o'clock, our very own Sean Morash is going on trial for crimes against sportsmanity. If you don't know why, you'll find out at 3 o'clock. We'll give you every single detail on the potential crimes that Sean committed. That's coming up at 3 o'clock. When you think back to this sports weekend, it was actually very predictable when you think about it with a clear head. Very predictable. The New York Mets blew a lead in the ninth inning. Predictable. The Mets had a small crowd on a day that should have been sold out. Predictable. Cody Rhodes retained the WWE Championship in White Plains, New York. Predictable. The New York Yankees do not lose. Juan Soto, Aaron Judge goes on a tear. Predictable. And if we're being honest with ourselves, with a clear head, what we saw on Saturday night down in Sunrise, Florida, was predictable. We sat here all year, and I'm a part of it. I raised my hand. I will take blame. I sat here and genuinely thought, this is different. They're going to win the Stanley Cup. And at the end of the day, it was the same crap just dressed up differently as a year ago. It was the same crap but dressed up differently as 2 years ago. So I know in the moment, on Friday and on Thursday and all day Saturday, we all thought differently. But the reality is, as we sit here today with a clear head, why are we surprised Artemi Panarin no-showed the conference finals? Why? Why are we surprised? Why are we surprised that this Ranger offense was listless? Why are we surprised? Why are we surprised that Jacob Trouba is one of the worst captains in the history of hockey? Why are we surprised? Tiki, we can't be surprised.
I kind of feel empty right now. I feel like the last month, all we've been doing is talking about championships. Whether it was with the Knicks and their run, despite the injuries, and somehow pushing the rock uphill against the rainstorm and the mud sliding down, the Knicks were going to get it done, and they didn't. Same thing with the Rangers. Unlike last year where they lost to an inferior opponent, they beat a superior opponent. And they lost to a superior opponent this year. But it felt the same. Like they were constantly pushing the rock uphill, trying to overcome their limitations to do something spectacular. And let's not cloud it. The reason it felt that way, that it was possible, Evan, is because it was 30 years after 1994.
It's more than that.
But I know. But that's why a lot of people believe that it was destined to happen. Destiny's like believing in coincidence. It's like believing in fate. It's like superstition. If I tie my shoes the right way, then everything is going to work out right. But being an athlete doesn't have anything to do with these false prophets, these false narratives that I think drive fans' minds. At the end of the day, the Rangers just lost to a better team. They lost to a better coach team. They lost to a team that plays a very specific way, and they never deviated from it.
So it's important what you just said, and I think this is the line of demarcation the Ranger fan needs to make today. And we'll talk to you, 888-808-1019. And there is the train of thought of the Florida Panthers are damn good. And the Florida Panthers were the defending and reigning Eastern Conference champions. And, oh, by the way, they just did it again. And they're going back to the Stanley Cup Finals. And their best players played better than your best players, and they're just really good.
And their depth players played better than your depth players.
No doubt. And you mentioned the coaching. And everything was just better, and we can accept it, move on, try to tinker the roster and get better, run it back, and see if next year, A, you can beat Florida, or B, you never have to play Florida. That's option number one. Option number two is to look deeper at this team and say, can we ever win with this team? Like, it's a fair and it's a difficult question because you don't make that immediately. I didn't make that after losing to Tampa 2 years ago because it was a great run. I didn't even make it last year after losing to New Jersey the way they did. But when it's 3 years in a row, it's like what former President Bush used to say. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I don't know, we can't be fooled again. Well, we've been fooled 3 times. So we're at number 3. So is it hey, you know what? It was a fun regular season. Gee golly, I had a great time. It just didn't work out in the playoffs. Let's just skip into the forest, maybe improve the roster, tweak it a little bit, move on from here. We'll come back next year. We'll be fine. Or do you look harder at this and say, hey, maybe the captain's not good enough and they got to find a way to get off of him? Maybe Artemi Panarin, who had an unbelievable regular season, shrinks in postseason time. And that's the decision the Ranger fan needs to make. How you feeling back there?
Like crap. Like absolute crap. And I think everybody needs to calm down and stop blaming the core of this team and stop panicking after. By the way, it's only been 3 seasons, really, with this version of the Rangers to say they can't win. It's an empty feeling. They lost to a really good team and a series that, frankly, came down to 2 or 3 plays like most postseason series do. But this is far different. This is not the same thing as losing to the Devils in the first round.
Very different.
They beat the Cup favorite in the second round. They just ran into the worst possible matchup for them and still came a crossbar and a bad penalty away from having a Game 7 when you factor in this series. Can we all take a breath?
Okay, I'll take a breath. Here we go. Okay. Does that make you feel better, Tiki?
It doesn't make anybody feel better, but it's the truth.
Why are you yelling at me?
It's going to be a lot of yelling. You got an angry, ornery me today.
Okay, that's fine. Good.
This is...
You should be angry and ornery. Your season ended prematurely.
I'm aware. This is, to me, the lowest I have felt as a sports fan since the Yankees lost to the Red Sox in 04.
But why?
Why? It's a great question,
Well, hold
Tiki.
on. You just said this is the lowest you feel as a sports fan since the Yankees collapsed against the Red Sox in 2004?
You're damn right.
Okay, so I just want to get this straight.
You're damn right.
Lower than a year ago losing to New Jersey.
Absolutely.
Lower than losing in the Cup Finals to Los Angeles.
Yep.
Lower than losing to Tampa in the Eastern Conference Finals a year later.
Yes.
Lower than the Yankees losing to the Astros in 17.
Yes.
The Astros in 19.
Yep.
The Astros in 22.
Yep.
Even the Astros in 15, if you want to count that.
Yep. Dallas Keuchel. We remember it well.
Lower than the Nets losing to the Bucks in the 7th game a couple of years ago.
Yes, actually.
Lower than, it's tough with the Giants. They've
I
been
know.
bad mostly.
The 2016 wildcard game versus the Packers, brutal.
Okay, why is this worse?
Because as you get older, you start to realize really how hard it is to win a championship. And there are certain markers and certain indicators you look for. And you could go one of 2 ways when you enter a postseason with a team. You can either say, anything can happen, let me enjoy the ride, this team has been great. Or you could look at a team and go, oh, my God, of the past champions I've seen in other cities, this checks every box. And those Yankee teams, starting in 2017, let's just take into account, they felt like they arrived early. The Ranger team 2 years ago felt like it arrived a little early. The Net team that I root for, it still felt like, and shame on me for thinking this, they'd be back the next year because they'd built a super team. It's not that this team won't be back, but it's what it took to get here after the last 2 years and the coaching change. They were that good, that gritty, that comeback mentality, and that loaded, and it still wasn't good enough at the bitter end and to make it as far as they did. So to me, I feel like this 2023-2024 Ranger team is the greatest missed opportunity at a championship that this city has seen in 20 years. And I don't know how anybody disagrees with that or denies it. All the cards were on the table. They came up short. It really sucks. And to tell you the truth, I'm at a loss for answers as to what they should actually do because I think blowing anything up is silly.
But wait a second. You just gave me an answer. Despite all of what you said, you basically looked at it and said, hey, the Panthers were a good team. They were a tough matchup. You can't blow the team up. Just run it back. We'll be fine. And look, it's easier said than done to blow something up or trade great players. It's complicated, especially when you look at the salary cap and you look at the roster options and you look at the fact that a lot of guys have no movement clauses in their contract. I guess what would stick with me and does stick with me, because genuinely, whether you didn't believe me or not, or you thought I was kidding, or you thought I was just being a troll, I genuinely thought this team was different. I genuinely thought,
But
as I
why?
said, because I thought they were better. Because I thought talent-wise, this was better than any team during the Henrik Lundqvist era. I believed it. I genuinely believed it. And what I forgot and what clouded me, and what may still cloud you, is that your best players, while they will put up the numbers, because there's no denying what Artemi Panarin did during the regular season, the reality is time in and time out, he comes up small. That's the reality. Now, I wish I had an answer. Does that mean I'm
disagree with
trading?
that.
Well, no, it's a reality. I don't know how you can even argue it. He didn't show up till it was over in Game 6.
In this series, you would agree. But don't you also have to give the Florida Panthers credit for that?
Yes.
And they play in such a specific way. They force you to stick in your zone. You can't get out. You can't get offensive possessions. And then when you get there, you're so flustered that you make mistakes. That Gustafsson misses a wide open net. Wide open. No, I mean, that changes the game if he hits that in the first period or second period.
It was Roslovic on that one.
No, it was Gustafsson. He missed it. Was wide open. It came across.
Roslovic missed one, as did Panarin. They both had open looks at the net.
Look how many open emptiness we're forgetting.
My point is, the Panthers didn't miss one of those. If they had an open net, it was in the net.
You're right.
Period. The Rangers missed the open nets. And so part of it is that they get so flustered by the Panthers. Again, I'm giving credit to the team that actually is going back-to-back to the Stanley Cup Finals, the Florida Panthers. They frustrate you so much when you're in their defensive zone. But by the time you get to the offensive zone, you're rushing things. You're not calm. You're not collected. You're not hitting that slap shot that you hit 15 million times in your life or your career in the spot where you know what's going. You miss it. You clank it off the side of the iron. You do all of these things, but you have to give the Panthers credit.
So here's what conflicts me. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I do want to give Gavin and my sister Stacy and my brother-in-law Phil, I want to give them a congratulations. I'm so happy for my family. You should congratulate them too, by the way, Sean. Go ahead.
Congratulations, Stacy and Gavin. I'm so happy you guys get to celebrate a second straight Cup appearance after only liking sports for 4 years.
That's nice. Jokes aside, I want to give the Panthers credit too. And I think a lot of what you said is right. And I think that if we're being fair, of course, they're a hell of a hockey team. Here's the problem. Here's where I pause. How many years in a row do we just continue to give another team credit? 3 years ago, it's the dynastic Tampa Bay Lightning. And trust me, I know full well how good they were. They beat my team twice. I know. I know how good they are. Last year it was, hey, the Devils are this young rising team. Give them credit. Now it's Florida. Eventually, I don't know about you, I get sick and tired of handing out bouquets. I'm done with it. Yes, the Florida Panthers did a lot well in this series, including their best players outplaying the Rangers' best players. Sometimes it's as simple as that. But I'm done, and I would be done, of just continuing to give everybody credit. Sometimes you got to look in the mirror, and as you pointed out, Sean, this isn't year one of a run. This isn't even year two. This is year three.
Right.
And your best players come up small. That's just the reality. I mean, you're arguing with me. Are you happy with Artemi Panarin's play in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I'm a crazy person that just went back and rewatched every game of the last 36 hours. I'm thrilled with Artemi Panarin's play.
That's ridiculous.
No, let me listen. No. Allow me for a second.
The floor is yours.
I get it. Artemi Panarin is not Connor McDavid that crazily makes a play like he did last night if he scores.
And by the way, Connor McDavid, 7 years before he got to the Stanley Cup
Thank
Final.
you. Artemi Panarin in this series, and this is where it is a credit to the Florida Panthers, was swallowed up every time he got the puck with double and triple teams, and the Panthers distinctly, with their big bodies, said, it's not about Artemi Panarin's toughness. We're just not going to allow him to dazzle and make the plays. And when he did have the space to make it, he was so apparent on the ice with his stick handling and everything, couldn't bury pucks. The more you look into this, the more Artemi Panarin being swallowed up is why Alexei Lafreniere has 8 goals in the last 2 rounds and takes off. It's not on him. Chris Kreider I would have liked more from. Absolutely. Same thing with Mika Zibanejad. What this comes down to is the Rangers needed more people than just their star. It's not like Matthew Tkachuk scored 9 goals in this series for the Florida Panthers either. Their other guys showed up. Inevitably, if you want to talk about shaking things up and blowing things up, you're asking a general manager, Chris Drury, to do so when he himself didn't truly believe in this team at the trade deadline to win a Stanley Cup because they had an opportunity, like the Panthers did in adding Vladimir Tarasenko or Jake Gensel with the Carolina Hurricanes, to go add a player to play next to Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider, and he didn't. He added Jack Roslovic for no money.
Now, let's be fair. Let's be fair. Let's go back to the trade deadline, because I think that is a fair criticism that many Ranger fans will discuss when they post-mortem what just happened. There were some Ranger fans not happy with the lack of aggressiveness from Drury at the trade deadline, especially looking at what Florida did and what Carolina did.
Holding on to your first-round pick.
You, though, as a diehard Ranger fan, who I do respect, you were fine with it.
And I was wrong.
You liked it.
And I was wrong.
You and Drury were wrong and misread what happened at that trade deadline.
Guess what? I'm just a fat mouth on WFAN. I could be wrong. The general manager better be right. And before we go crazy about it's the same roster, not having a player that can actually play on a top-end level with Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad versus a team like that that's throwing all of their resources, like Roslovic missing a wide-open net or Alex Wenberg in the last game. Florida knew they had nothing on that line, and they could leave that guy wide open skating through lanes, and they would never hit a net. And that did the Rangers in. You need to have everything tidied up, and actually to beat a team like Florida, have essentially the perfect roster. And furthermore, it's not even about the offense. On defense, Jacob Trouba is the biggest issue, not those core offensive guys.
I agree Trouba's an issue.
Took bad penalties, bad angles. I don't even care that he's the captain of the team. That's irrelevant. The defense was overwhelmed in their own zone, and they couldn't get pucks out to create that offensive generation. So, yes, the grand score of things, you're not going to be happy that Panarin doesn't score till the final minute and a half, and Kreider, the Game 6 shorthanded goal. Zibanejad, who, by the way, I think is clearly hurt from the Carolina series when he took a cross-check. I get it. Their totality of goals was not there. That is not a problem that the Rangers need to blow up. I think that's an unfortunate set of circumstances, and people are tired of hearing that. They have other problems that need to shake up, including on their defense. And if you really want to believe, they need to add another piece, not start subtracting the pieces.
The season is over. The New York Rangers are going home. This is not like 1994. We thought it was like 1994. I raised my hand. I'm one of the guys. Beningo's one of those guys. Sean's one of those guys. Sal, I heard him say it many times, one of those guys. We genuinely thought this was different. And the reality was it's been the same crap since 1994. We'll get your calls next, 888-808-1019. Sean Morash is being accused of crimes against sportsmanity. We will address those, and he will be placed on trial at 3 o'clock today.